call to order the Nevada Commission for the Reconstruction of the V&T Railway. We are here Tuesday, November 30th, 2021, 1 p.m. at the Carson City Community Center, Robert Bob Kroll Boardroom. With that, if I could get a roll call, please, Allison.
Clay Mitchell.
Present.
Denny Dotson.
Here.
David Peterson.
Present.
Stephanie Hicks. Here. Jim Wells.
Wonderful. We have a quorum. All right, if I could get everybody to please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Okay, thank you, everybody. With that, we will move on to agenda item 4, public comment. So at this time, the public is invited to comment on and discuss any topic that is relevant to or within the authority of this public body. I don't see any public comment in the room. Do we have anybody on the 775-686-9037 number?
There are no callers on the line at this time.
Okay. Allison, anybody?
No callers on the 686 at this time.
Perfect. Okay, wonderful, great. We'll go ahead and move on to agenda item 5 for possible action, approval of the minutes of the October 28th, 2021 meeting. Has everybody had a chance to look over the minutes in your packet? Any edits or changes that anybody would like to make?
Yep, there are a few
okay.
edits. Oh,
Okay.
pardon me, first time
Yeah,
our
go
users
ahead.
are here.
Go ahead, Leah.
On page 2, the first line should be Jennifer in Virginia City, not of Virginia City. In that same paragraph, on the last line, it should be has termination date for them, not determination. On page 3, under item 10, it should be pre-emergent, not emergent. And then on page 4, paragraph 4, line 3 should be vague. There's an extra R on vague. And then what page was?
Towards the end, in the minutes, it says
It says
Figert, and it should say Kim.
Kim Fagert, not Ken Fagert. I just don't know what page it is.
Page 7,
Page 7,
the very last line.
last line. Yeah.
We're changing that to Kim? Yes. Okay, not Ken. Okay. Oh, yeah. Okay, on the bottom of this page. That's great. Okay. Any other changes? Okay. Thank you, Leah, for those changes. So, great. With that, I would entertain a motion. Oh, go ahead, Jim.
I'll move to approve the minutes with the changes noted.
Thank you, Jim, for that motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
This is Denny, and I'll be happy to second that.
Okay. Thank you. Stephanie beat you to the punch, Denny. So great. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? A motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Thank you again, Leah, for those edits. We'll go ahead and move on to the consent agenda, item number 6 for possible action. Discussion and possible action regarding the approval of the adjusted budget report for October 1st through the 31st, 2021. Jim, do you want to add anything? No? Okay.
Just that I made the one correction that Commissioner Peterson or Vice Chair Peterson had asked for at the last meeting, so that the top and bottom now are the same format.
Yep. That's great. Any questions? I can't see Clay, so forgive me, Clay, but Denny, I can see you. Any questions? Okay. With that, I'd be happy to entertain a motion on the consent agenda. Go ahead, Stephanie. I can't hear Denny.
Okay. I move to approve the consent agenda as published.
Thank you for that motion, Stephanie. Do I have a second?
This is Denny, and I will second that.
Thank you, Denny. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion by my peers? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
Aye.
Thank you. Motion carries unanimously. Wonderful. All right, let's go ahead and move on to agenda item 8 for possible action. Discussion and possible action to approve the V&T Railway Commission fiscal year 2021 annual audit report and financial statements. So we have Suzanne Olson and Sunny Zhang here from Casey Nealon. They are going to present this report. And I just want to say, this was not an easy audit. You guys were faced with not only 4 of us as new commissioners, new staff up in Story County on the fiscal side. We have Allison and Leah, a brand new general manager team for the operations. So I applaud you guys for taking this on. I don't think you realized how difficult it was going to be to get all of this information from all of us. And I know it's kind of like a jigsaw puzzle, putting all the pieces together. So I'm going to let you guys go ahead and walk through. Denny, did you have a question? I apologize. No. Oh, okay.
No.
Okay.
No, I'm good.
Okay. So with that, I'd like to just have Suzanne take us through the audit, and then if there are any questions, let you address questions from the commission after you do your presentation. Yeah, please. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, go for it.
Good afternoon. So today I am bringing you draft audit report for the Nevada Commission for the reconstruction of the V&T Railway. I'm going to go ahead and start with the independent auditor's report and just kind of walk our way through this draft because there are some things that are pending. We've been working on them all the way up through this morning, trying to kind of hash out certain things. So we'll kind of go through those as we go. The auditor report, currently we are working with an unqualified opinion with an emphasis of a matter paragraph. This audit report doesn't currently have that emphasis of a matter report because we're still finalizing the disclosure that it pertains to. So when we get to note 7, we'll go into more detail as to what that emphasis of a matter paragraph is going to state. But overall, if you go through this, it details out the reports that we're reporting on, what management's responsibility is, which is the commission, what our responsibility is, and then that we're planning on issuing an unqualified opinion. On the next page, you've got the required supplementary information, which is the budget to actual information, as well as the MD&A, which is the management's discussion and analysis. And then we've got our report on internal controls. There we're going to discuss significant deficiencies and material weaknesses, and if we identified any. Going on to page 3, this is the management's discussion and analysis. All of the amounts, all of the dollars that are presented, the financial balances that are presented in these financial statements are not pending. They are in final draft form. So anything that we're discussing that's pending at this point is going to be wording, finalizing wording, okay? So I'm just going to go through the highlights of the financial statements for fiscal year 2021. The assets of the commission exceeded its liabilities at the close of the fiscal year ended June 30, 2021 by $29,398,810. Of this amount, $29,489,489 related to capital assets. Your total net position for fiscal year 2021 decreased by $560,010. The bulk of that decrease was related directly to depreciation expense, and the depreciation expense was $749,246. We're going to go ahead and go on to page 4. Page 4 gives you a snapshot, a summary of the net position, and the summary of revenues, expenses, and changes in net position. The summary of net position provides you with your assets, your liabilities, and your total net position for the as of June 30th, 2021. The summary of revenue, expenses, and changes in net position provides you with the activity that happened during fiscal year 2021. And so you'll notice that there were charges of services for 2021 of $294,466 compared to $1,080,394 for the prior fiscal year. And your general revenue was pretty consistent, but your charges for services were down, and that's mainly attributable to COVID issues and being shut down and limiting your ability to provide those services. Your expenditures also went down as an effort that was made on your behalf to reduce those expenditures due to the lack of income related to COVID. In fiscal year 2021, you had $1,218,235 in expenditures, and for fiscal year 2020, you had $2,103,226 worth of expenditures. That reflected a decrease of $884,991 in expenditures, and that's on page 5. That's at the top of page 5. The overall revenue decrease was $785,013. That was your operating revenue. And as we've provided in the MD&A, or as is provided in the MD&A, we're attributing that to the pandemic. We're going to go ahead and go to page 6. Page 6 is the statement of net position. It shows a more detailed accounting of your assets and liabilities for fiscal year 21. One of the biggest things that changed from this year, from fiscal year 20 to fiscal year 21, was the note receivable on the Draco property. It was, the original note was due to have a lump sum payout in January of 2021, and there will be some discussion on amending or renegotiating that note since it expired. But because it did expire, and at June 30th, 2021, there wasn't a newly negotiated note, all of that remaining balance became current instead of having a long-term component. In addition to that, there was a deposit in escrow of $200,000 from the borrower that was made in, I believe it was March of 2020, and that is also reported as an asset on this account, or within your assets on your statement of net position. So those are two different things that are showing up this year that were not there last year. Your liabilities, there wasn't a significant change in your liabilities from last year to this year. We are going to go into detail related to the due to other governments and the Story County payable when we go into Note 7 and we have a little discussion about Note 7. Are there any questions related to the statement of net position before we move forward?
Any questions from any commissioners? Denny or Clay, any questions so far?
Okay.
Nope.
Moving forward to page 7, one of the pending changes, one of the things that is pending is the compliance of these financial statements. I did get the compliance information back prior to this meeting. So one of the changes that we'll be moving is moving license plate revenue out of operating revenue and moving it down into non-operating revenue. So it's more of a general revenue, less of an operational. So when these are finalized, you'll see that number move down. But other than that, and the one thing that we discussed was the fact that there was no train tickets during fiscal year 2021. There were rail bikes. When you submitted your budget to the Department of Taxation, the revenue was under train tickets. So as we discussed, I added rail bikes to that line item, but I did not create a brand new line item. Are we okay with that decision? Okay.
Yeah, that seems fair.
I don't really have anything else that's new here that would be different than in how things were reported in the prior year. Does anyone have any questions related to the statement of revenues, expenses, and changes in net position?
Any questions for Suzanne on this particular statement of revenues? Nope. Great,
Okay.
Suzanne. And I should point out, and I apologize for not saying this, this was late material, this audit document, so it was posted to the website before the meeting, and we do have it in the back of the room, so I just wanted to point that out.
Thank you. The next page is our statement of cash flows. This just shows how the money was spent and how the money was received. And then we do a reconciliation from the operating loss to the net cash used by operating activities. There isn't anything new or different from how this was being calculated in the prior fiscal year. Does anyone have any questions related to this schedule? Okay. All right, now we're down to our notes. I'm not going to necessarily go through each and every single one of these notes. The one thing I will go through are the things that changed. Okay. For note 1, in prior year we were referencing the governmental activities fund, transitioning to just reporting into the enterprise fund accounting. Because that happened between fiscal year 19 and fiscal year 20, it's a done deal. It's over. So we removed the disclosures that pertain to that government activity fund going forward because it's already happened. So there's no need to keep reporting on it. So that's what page 9, the difference is on page 9. On page 10, there weren't really very many changes, only some references to that government activities. Disclosure, government-wide financial statement disclosure, yes,
Go
Jim?
ahead, Jim.
I have to go back to the cash flow
Yes.
statement because the net operating activities doesn't match your reconciliation anymore, and I was trying to figure out why. And it's the other cash paid changed from 81,801 to the 97,974,
Okay,
so that doesn't match your reconciliation
Okay.
now.
we will. I know what change caused that. So,
Jim, will you just, because I couldn't hear you. What-
On page 8, on the
Page
cash flow
8.
statement,
Yes,
if you look at the very top where it says cash flow from operating activities,
yes.
and the fourth line down says net cash used by operating activities, that
They should.
minus 191,616.
Yep.
That should match the very bottom number.
they should agree.
Oh,
One is
yeah.
the direct method and one is the indirect method, and they should agree.
Okay, and just for the record, is the 191 the correct number? Is
It's the 191,616, that's the
616.
correct number.
Okay.
Yes.
And then we should add an S to the net cash used by operating activities on the bottom.
Looks like it cut
It
off.
cut off, yeah,
Yeah.
it looks like it put a
Looks like it cut
hash
off.
mark there, yeah. Okay, thank you.
So,
Thanks, Jim.
perfect. All right. So I am back on page 10 of the notes to the financial statements. There were no reportable changes here other than removing government-wide financial disclosure information. Going to page 11, we added some clarification to the net position disclosure to better define unrestricted net position. And then we also added a disclosure on operating and non-operating revenues and expenses. Jim, you had asked me what the difference between non-exchange transaction and non-exchange revenue receipts. They should both say non-exchange transactions. Note 2 does indicate that the commission confirmed all significant statutory constraints on its financial administration during the year. So there were nothing to report there. Note 3, the cash footnote. There was a footnote added to discuss the FDIC limits. There's also going to be an additional footnote added to document the state collateralization that covers that account as well. That came through the compliance review. Notes receivable, note 4. Note 4, this is the Draco note that we were discussing earlier. It summarizes when it began, when it matured, what the balance was when it matured, and that there's negotiations for a new agreement in place, and that it's awaiting the approval of the commission. And that's where we left the note here, because the actual agreement, once it's executed, if it's executed when we're ready to issue, we will add that as a subsequent event. We'll either add it as an executed subsequent event, or that this is the note that's under negotiation and is pending and awaiting issuance.
That's great. Suzanne, just on note 3, could we just remove that extra dollar sign under the
Yes,
138,620?
yes. I'm on page 13, note 5, capital assets, and note 6, risk management. The only thing that changed here was a reference to the government-wide financial statements. Note 7. Note 7, we received some new wording for Note 7 this morning. It still needs to go through a second compliance to make sure that it meets the requirements that will allow us to do that emphasis of a matter paragraph. We're also going to add some detail related to both the 2010 interlocal agreement and the 2020 interlocal agreement. That will go in above this first paragraph. The first paragraph is detailing out that based on the local agreements that are, the local interlocal agreements that are in place, that there haven't been a reconciliation between Story County and the commission, and that the impact hasn't been measured as to what that reconciliation would provide for these financial statements. And so since we can't report on it, we can't determine whether or not there's a gap departure. We don't know how they would materially impact the financial statements, but it is a determinable value once that reconciliation is performed. So by requesting a reconciliation, we are going to pose it as an emphasis of a matter, saying that we can provide an opinion on everything else except for this piece. And then that will give the commission an opportunity to work with Story County on getting that reconciliation completed. And so I don't know how much detail we need to go into there, but we can stop at this point and answer questions if we need to, or we can wait and answer them later.
If there are any questions, I know Clay, you had to switch over to the audio only, so I just want to make sure that we can hear you. Clay? I know if you, I think you can hear us, but we can't hear you, just so you know. Okay.
That
Oh. We almost heard you.
yeah, thank you. It's only working through the computer, and that's a little spotty, but I can hear you just fine.
Okay, thank you, Clay. Okay, so does anyone have any questions on the Note 7 situation before Suzanne moves forward? Okay. Go ahead,
Dave, this is
Suzanne.
Denny.
Oh, yeah, go ahead, Danny, sorry, yep.
Yeah, this is just a comment, I guess, and I look forward to the discussion going forward. As she had mentioned, this is a voter initiative, and if I'm not mistaken, these funds are kept in a separate, separate fund. It is not Story County General Fund where this money comes from. So it might be just a play on words, but to say that the commission owes Story County and could be a little misleading. These funds are set for the reconstruction of the V&T Railway Commission. And, both parties have to agree, but it's not a direct payment back to Story County in my mind, because I've been a part of this for, many years.
That is a very valid and good, actually, clarification point. It is set aside probably in a fiduciary fund at Story County based on their CAFR. So we could definitely add some clarification to the titling of that so that it is less pointed, I guess, with that. Okay.
Yeah, that makes sense. Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome.
Thank you, Denny. Appreciate that comment.
Perfect. Is that all of the questions that we have related to that note?
Sorry, yeah, are there any other comments or questions on note number 7? Nope. Go ahead, Suzanne, yeah,
Okay.
sorry.
The next note is note 8, subsequent events. The only subsequent event that I'm currently aware of is the note with Draco that you guys are discussing later during this meeting. And then we'll finalize this footnote and the wording, clarifying the wording there. Note 9 is a pretty standard footnote right now. It's the risk and uncertainties, and it's going on just as a public notice and reminder of these economic times. Does anyone, that's the end of our footnote disclosures. Does anyone have any questions in general over our footnote disclosures?
Nope, I don't see any.
All right.
Please feel free to continue, Suzanne, thank you.
The supplementary information, this is our budget to actual. We took the budget directly from the budget that was approved by the Department of Taxation. I did notice that we have the original and the final equaling each other, and I do believe you did file a tentative original that then got modified. So we'll update that accordingly. But the final actual and the variance columns are all calculating correctly. What I did note on here, and I was going to ask the question, there wasn't any depreciation on the Department of Taxation budget that was filed for fiscal year 2021. There had been in prior years. So typically, we only include items that are included in the budget. So I removed it. But is that how you want that to be presented? Because it does paint a different picture.
Anybody, Jim, you want to comment on that?
Yeah, and I don't think we included it in 22 either, in the budget that we submitted for 22 either. You know, depreciation's really a non-cash transaction.
It
and
is.
And the budget to actual, to me, is a bunch of cash transactions.
Correct.
So I prefer leaving it out because it's not something that hits the cash account. So that's one of the reasons that I don't know that it needs to be on the budget to actual.
And that is why we removed it, but because it had been there previously, I just wanted to confirm.
Suzanne, sorry,
Mm-hmm.
just ask a question. Do we know the 791, is that the original or the final? I know we have to figure out one
The
of two.
final, the 791-120 was the final.
Okay, so that's right. We just need to go back to whatever was probably submitted.
So
in
the
April
original,
2020.
I have it. The original budget was. It's not added up the same way.
That probably has the,
The original was higher.
okay, and then
So,
reduced, okay.
Yeah, it was reduced.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. The final report is that report on, it's the independent auditor's report on internal control over financial reporting and on compliance and other matters based on an audit of financial statements performed in accordance with government auditing standards. And here's where we talk about significant deficiencies and material weaknesses. And because of what we've been working through all the way up until this morning, there are going to be a couple of findings. We talked about them this morning. But we haven't hashed out the wording on them just yet because we were still discussing them as of this morning. So I did highlight in yellow. You can't see it in the printed copy, but on the online copy, you should be able to see it in yellow. And so this report will be changing when we finalize it. I would be happy if we need to, once this is finalized and we've worked out some of these wording issues that we've been talking about, I would be happy to have a briefer appearance at another board meeting to kind of go through the final discussion and make sure that all of your questions are answered if that's something that would interest you. But the final report is the auditor's comments. And again, it's getting wrapped up based off of everything that all the way up through right prior to this meeting, what we were discussing. So does anyone have any questions about these draft financial statements? I know that we're still pending some information,
Yeah.
the legal rep letter, the management rep letter, but we needed to nail down We needed to nail down note 7, and then we need to know the decision that's made on that Draco note that you're going to be discussing it later on in this meeting.
Yeah, no, and I'll just thank you again. I want to reiterate that a lot of new people and a lot of moving parts and pieces to this, and a huge thanks to Jim for stepping in here
Yes.
and helping, because I'm no auditor, but Jim was awesome, and Jennifer as well. Just trying to pull as much of this information together to help you all out, and so. I know there's a few more pieces of the puzzle to put together, but again, we still have our compliance issue with taxation, right, which is why we have the audit in front of the commission today. So I just want to make sure that my peers understand that there are small changes that
Yes.
have to be made. Some of them are with regard to the Draco note and, 10, 15 minutes, right, and a decision that we make on that, and others are the changes that we've discussed already. So, happy to have you come back if the commission would prefer that. It would have to be in January if my peers would like that to be the case. But for today, we've talked through some of these changes and realize pending another decision, there might be a small, shift in some language. So, yeah.
I would like to say one
Yeah.
other thing. So normally, before we present a draft financial statement, everything gets to go through compliance. We get to update it and give you a final draft. So like the dollar signs and the little funky spacing things, all of those are usually ironed out before you get a copy of this. But we kind of had to rush through our compliance to be able to present today. So I do want to let you know that that is not our normal standard.
No, and taking 10% off the contract certainly makes Jim feel a lot better about that dollar sign thing. So, yeah, no, we totally
So-
understand. A lot of, literally, we were just working on this morning,
Yes.
to get some of these things finalized. So,
So
any questions from anyone? Go ahead, Jim.
I'm just gonna say, Suzanne and Sonny, I know this was probably way more than you thought you were getting yourselves into when we talked before you
a little bit.
signed on the dotted line. But I do think next year will be easier. I think that we will get to the bottom of this reconciliation with Story County and get that resolved once and for all. And then I think moving forward, I know that some of the things that we've been able to get from Fair Harbor, some of the reconciliations that we're doing, the consistency with which we are getting expenses and seeing the backup, I feel a lot more comfortable going forward that these won't be as difficult in 2022.
Yeah, no, I agree.
But thank you again for all.
You're
your
very
work.
welcome. Thank you, guys. And I appreciate, again, all of the cooperation and collaboration, because that's what it's taken. It's definitely been a team effort amongst
Yeah.
everyone, so.
Wait till you get my bill. Oh, my goodness. No, I echo what Jim said, so thank you. Stephanie or Clay, Denny, any comments? Any questions? Okay. Well, again, thank you to both of you, Sunny included. And Suzanne, appreciate that, and your team. So with that, I would be happy to entertain a motion on agenda item number 8, if somebody would like to throw one out there.
So I will take a shot at it. I would move to approve the draft audit report for the FY 2021 financial statements, recognizing that there are still some changes and language revisions that will be in the final document, as well as findings and the management information or the auditor comments.
Thank you for that motion, Jim. Do I have a second?
This is Clay. I'll second that motion.
Thank you, Clay. We have a motion from Jim, a second from Clay. Any further discussion by the commission?
David, there's one piece
Oh,
that's
yes.
missing. For some reason, the letter that you'd sent to me requesting a report on any material or adverse action involving the commission didn't get to me until yesterday.
Okay.
I will have a response to the auditors by hopefully this afternoon, depending on how long this
Meeting goes.
meeting lasts.
Okay.
But it's a clean report. There isn't anything pending or threatened or
Yeah.
anything negative to report. It's from the standpoint of legal counsel.
Okay. Good with that? Okay. No, thank you. I appreciate that, Mike. Yeah, tonight or even, tomorrow morning is great when you get back. Okay. Thank you, Mike. So we have a motion from Jim, second. Any further discussion, comments? Okay, seeing none. All those in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you again, Sunny, Suzanne. Really appreciate you and your team's effort. So thank you, thank you. Yeah, next year it'll be so easy. Honestly, you won't even want to charge us for the fiscal 22 audit. It's going to be that easy. I was just saying what Jim was thinking. So thank you very much. Okay, let's go ahead and move on to agenda item number 9 for possible action. Discussion and possible action regarding ratification of a revenue agreement with Storytime Photography to provide photos with Santa for customers who visit the Eastgate Depot during Polar Express. So this is a very small dollar, I would argue, revenue contract. We had some issues with the prior Santa consultant folks that we used. So I give Allison full credit here for coming up with a savings grace person who would do the photos with Santa. But because of the timing of our board meetings, this agenda item and the next one, I had Allison go ahead and move forward and sign these so we could actually have Santa on the next item, security for the 18 up at the depot. So this is to ratify the revenue agreement that Allison signed. And Allison, I don't know if you want to add anything to that, but that's kind of what this particular item is.
Yeah, it's a revenue only. The photographer that we identified to work with is taking on all expenses, including printing of the photos and the payment of Santa himself. So essentially, she's just cutting a check, a revenue share to us, and then we will then take that and pay Rail Events their licensing fee out of that.
Are there any questions from the commission on this particular item? If not, I'd be happy to entertain a motion. Go ahead, Stephanie.
Thank you. I move to ratify revenue agreement with Storytime Photography.
Thank you for that motion, Stephanie. Do I have a second?
This is Denny, and be happy to second that motion.
Thank you, Denny. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion by the commission? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Great, motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much. We'll go ahead and move on to agenda item 10 for possible action. Discussion and possible action regarding ratification of a special patrol service agreement with High Sierra Patrol to provide security at the Eastgate Depot during Polar Express for a total not to exceed amount of $2,875. So this is another one. Admittedly, do you want to? Oh, okay. Okay. I was here. You were jumping in. We didn't know about as we're going through kind of the growing pains here. So this is to provide roving patrols throughout the course of the night to keep an eye on the depot and the 18, just for the nights of Polar Express. So
I do need to clarify, I hope this doesn't affect it. It's not the engine 18. It's the cars and the diesel. Does that affect the ratification at all?
Can we just add that to the
To the motion?
do we even need to add that to the motion? That was me, so I take responsibility for.
I
Not
also should have
adding
caught. I should have
cars,
caught that.
yeah.
So yeah, we do have 3 of the cars sitting at the depot as well as the diesel. It's overnight there for Thursdays, Fridays, and Saturdays, and then it heads back on Sundays. So this covers the patrolling of security for the track, the depot, and the train.
Does anybody see an issue? Mike, the motion is to ratify the agreement, which is correctly.
Well, we talked about that, David. I think it should be ratified.
Yeah.
It's something that needed to be done before
Right.
we get the commission together.
Okay. But is it okay, Mike? Sorry, Allison's just wondering, because the staff summary, spelled out the 18, it didn't say the diesel and cars. Are we okay to, since the agreement's
No, I
correct?
noted that
Okay. Okay,
18 wasn't being used.
yeah,
In
Yeah.
the staff summary on the agenda. Yeah.
yeah. I'll own that.
I do have one question. Has this historically have they been done security in the past for the trains, or has it gone back and forth each day?
I think
Oh,
it's,
go ahead, Denny. Oh, sorry.
I'll let Denny go.
Oh, I would just, yeah, no, we have had security in the past. I know Elaine had hired some a company. I'm not sure who she used or used her own
This
staff.
company.
We
This
certainly
company,
had,
Denny.
someone there because Tom. Okay, then I have. Oh, have we used this company before? Was that the question?
We did use
Yes,
this
we did,
company.
sorry.
I quoted out 3 or 4 different security companies and ended up with this one, and we do have a relationship with them from the past.
Okay, yeah, that's what I thought.
Go ahead, Stephanie.
I just had a question. I think before, and I could be wrong, I thought that there was a certain dollar amount that Elaine could approve that didn't have to come to the commission. Have we established that at all with Allison? And I mean, obviously, if we haven't, that would be a future agenda item, but I just want to throw it out there.
That $5,000 for expenditures. Yeah,
Correct.
I think where we were unclear was actually going into contract with a vendor,
right.
which is why we brought this forward.
Because under normal circumstances, you guys would give the chair permission to sign the contract. But in this case, I
Okay.
authorized Allison to sign
Gotcha.
these, right?
Okay.
Because I didn't have the authorization. So that's why we were coming back to ratify
Okay.
and they were small enough.
But had you signed it, then
I think
it
it would
wouldn't
have been a
have come
problem.
here.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah, yeah.
gotcha.
So you can see I can't even get the agenda right, with the staff summary. So I don't want to create more problems, for us. But yeah, I mean, that is a valid question. I think we need to give Alice some kind of discretion, right? So we're not always up against it, right? Or then having to come back after the fact because of the timing of the meetings, right? Relative to when these decisions have to be made. So
And it generates more work for everybody, so.
for sure, yeah.
Well, and I can tell you as somebody who's tracking the contracts that I would prefer to see them here. That I don't want something slipping through that is signed by someone that all of a sudden we're making payments and I'm not aware of them. Because as long as I'm tracking them, I want them to continue coming in front of the commission.
But would you be okay if it maybe came as part of her report instead of an item that the commission has to approve, or do you prefer it to
No, I
really
prefer
like
the
the
commission
ratification?
actually
Okay.
approve. It's different to go out and like buy supplies and to do something, but when you're entering and signing a contract, I'd prefer that the commission
Okay.
ratify them.
All right.
Thank you both. Any further discussion on this item from the commission? I'd be happy to entertain a motion.
I would ratify that I would move that we approve the ratification of a special patrol service agreement with High Sierra Patrol for security at the Eastgate Depot during Polar Express for a total not to exceed $2,875.
Thank you, Jim, for that motion. Do I have a second?
This is Clay. I'll second that motion.
Thank you, Clay, for that second. Motion second. Any further discussion by the commission? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Okay, thank you, Allison, on this one. Appreciate it very much. All right, now we're going to get into item number 11. I should mention here that late material was posted for this particular item as well on the website. It's in the back of the room. That late material is inclusive of the promissory note itself, plus, thank you, Jim, for the amortization schedules that were provided as well. So item 11, discussion and possible action regarding approval of a new 2-year promissory note at a rate of 5% interest per annum with 3.5% convenience fees for all credit card payments commencing on January 1st, 2022, amortized over 2 years with Roy Street Properties LLC in the amount of $245,217.59. So again, the late material in your packet and that was emailed out includes the promissory note, which does have Roy's signature. Thank you, Allison and Leah, for securing that yesterday. And then Jim was kind enough to put together a balanced due interest calendar as well as the sort of 24-month, I guess, amortization schedule as well for our new note with Roy. So, Jim, I don't know if you want to add anything on, okay. Hopefully I covered everything. So if there are any questions at all, please shoot them out there. Again, I'm sorry that this came yesterday, the day before the meeting, but we were trying to track Mr. Street down to get his signature on this revised new note. So go ahead, Denny.
Yeah, and maybe I'm reading this wrong. Thanks, Mr. Chair. On the promissory note on the second paragraph, principal, interest, and convenience fees for all credit card payments payable in 24 monthly installments of $245,217.59 amortized over 2 years. Am I reading that wrong? Where he's making $245,000 a month payments?
Should that
That should have been the 10,758.04. I thought that I didn't remember that we didn't catch that.
10,758.04, with the exception of the last payment, Jim. 10,750. Thank you, Denny. 10,758.04. Just in that second paragraph. The other amounts,
Correct.
the other amounts are okay. So okay, Denny, good catch. Thank you. So 10,758.
Not that
Jim.
that wouldn't be a nice thing.
Yeah, no, he signed it, so this is great. We'll have some extra cash. See, I've been trying to generate some cash flow for this commission.
You guys got to get me involved this more often.
Yeah.
Revenue
Well,
generator.
you would have cost us $235,000 a month if I got you involved in the front end. Thanks, Denny.
See?
Yep. No. Okay. No. So noted. Change paragraph 2 to say 10,758.04, and then we'll just have to get this back to Roy. Okay. Thank you, Denny. Any other changes?
Mr. Chairman,
Yeah. Go ahead.
it's Clay.
Yeah.
So I saw that, and in the same paragraph, I think we have a starting date of January 1st, 2021. That should be January 1st, 2022.
Oh, yes. Yep. We'll fix that. Okay, 2022. It's still correct?
Other than that, it looks great. I appreciate the work on this and getting it worked out.
Thank you, Clay. Okay. We're still good with the last date, right, Jim? December 1st, 2023? Yeah, because that's the 24th payment due. Okay. Okay, thank you guys for both those changes. Any other comments or changes? All right, I'd be happy to entertain a motion, realizing we need to make a couple of quick fixes. Anybody?
I would move that we approve the new 2-year promissory note with Roy Street Properties LLC with the 2 noted changes to the promissory note commencing on January 1, 2022 for 24 months at 5% interest plus the 3.5% convenience fee for using a credit card.
Thank you for that motion, Jim. Do I have a second?
This is Denny. I'll second that motion.
Thank you, Denny. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion by the commission? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? A great motion carries unanimously. Thanks, everybody. Thank you, Jim and Allison, for getting this thing, Mike, for getting this all rolling. So appreciate it very much. All right. We will move on to item number 12 for possible action. Discussion and possible action regarding a sole source justification with Virginia and Truckee Railroad regarding future train service operations on behalf of the V&T Railway Commission. So before I turn this over to Mike, I had made a request. I'm thinking it was maybe late September or October, or maybe early October.
You made it on September 16th.
16, okay. Yeah, of Mike to come back to us to, kind of tell us if the situation that we have between ourselves and Tom and VTRR is a sole source opportunity. So we can look at a renegotiation or new negotiation for a new train services operating agreement with Tom and team. So Mike, I'll turn it over to you if I can.
Okay, as David indicated, he sent me a formal request on September 16th, specifically asking the question whether or not the train services operation qualifies as a sole source, given the unique ownership of the tracks themselves that the trains are operating on. In answer to that, I think you can find that there is a sole source, and it's because of a rather odd situation. We have tracks that are owned by the commission, and then we have the 3-mile tracks that Tom owns that lead actually into Virginia City. If Tom was not awarded the new train operating services agreement, I think his reaction would be the way it was several years back when the commission was trying to consolidate ownership in the commission, and we had some serious discussions with him at the time that didn't come to fruition at all. He had a value that he placed on his track that was way over anything that the appraiser could come up with. So we have, I think if we were just operating on our track, it would not be a sole source, because when the initial contract was discussed and awarded by the predecessor commission, we had 3 different railroad operations, including Tom's, that bid on it. And the contract was awarded to Sierra Railroad, and Tom immediately said, well, you're not going to be traveling on my tracks. So at any rate, because of the fact that you do have to run over his 3+ miles of track to get into Virginia City, and that's the main reason for the train, is to get to Virginia City, I think you can easily find that this is a contract which is not adapted to award by a competitive solicitation. And the very first exception to the Local Government Purchasing Act is items which may be only contracted from a sole source. And I think that's got to be Tom if you're going to run a train into Virginia City.
Okay. Thank you for that, Mike. Any comments by the commission? Anybody want to go ahead?
David, I got a comment there.
Yeah, go ahead, Clay. Okay, sorry, Ken.
Yeah,
Ken.
This is Ken. Yeah, absolutely. What Mike said is absolutely correct. And also one other factor is, irregardless of any contract, to allow a separate railroad to operate over the Virginia Trucking Railroad, Tom's track, that's going to be essentially a real problem with the Federal Railroad Administration. Based on some issues we had previously, they pretty strongly indicated, not pretty strongly, they indicated that if we were to have more than one operator operating over the track, that either ourselves or Tom's Railroad would lose our historic tourist designation, and therefore that railroad would now be a short line railroad subject to the full provisions of all 1,000 pages of 49 CFR 200 to 299. So that's a big issue. And so regardless of any contract, unless either ourselves or Tom wants to step up to a class 1, short line railroad status, that's not an option to run on his track other than himself. That's all. Thanks.
Thank
To
you,
that
Ken.
end, David, back in 2012, the Federal Railroad Administration addressed correspondence to Kim Fagert, who at the time was in some capacity with the Gold Hill Historical Society, and he wanted to run trains on track that he was going to construct at the Gold Hill Depot and onto the commission's track. But they very clearly said, if Gold Hill Historical Society operates outside of its yard and onto the track over which the Virginia and Truckee Railroad currently operates, then it would be considered a general system railroad that is subject to FRA safety jurisdiction, as would be the Virginia and Truckee Railroad. When more than one entity operates over the same track, the track is brought within the general system, and those entities that operate over the track are considered railroads that operate on the general system. As a result, they are subject to FRA safety jurisdiction. So there's a pretty compelling reason not to have more than one operator on the track, and that is the FRA's position that if you do, you become subject to all of the regulations that would be applicable to any railroad. And Ken can speak to his experience with the Union Pacific, but, that's the kind of regulations you guys would have to deal with if you operate if more than one operator is on the tracks.
No, thank you, Ken, and thank you, Mike. Go ahead, Stephanie. You had a question.
Sure, thank you. First of all, I want to say thank you to David and to Mike that I feel like we're putting this issue to bed, and I think that's a really good thing. I know from coming onto the commission there were conversations that were had and concerns that were brought to me over this issue. And in the sense that making sure that our contracts are done correctly. What I would like to ask is, can we just document this somewhere? Whether we document it in the new contract to say, this is a sole source contract because blah, 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 or within, our other documents that we have, a memo, whether it's just a legal opinion memo drafted to us or something that we include in our strategic plan, so that when the next new commission is here, they already have the answer and it's not an unknown, and they know we went through this exercise and there's no concern over it. So that's the only thing I ask. I think it's great that we can put the question to bed.
Well, that's actually a great suggestion. I'm wondering, Mike, how you would feel the template, that the state uses, state agencies, which Jim can speak to far better than I can, but, you have to make that request from the link when we met a month or so ago. They have that template that a state agency fills out to put their case in front of the purchasing administrator for sole source. Maybe we could modify, or I could say we, but Mike, you could modify that document, and then we have that as a copy. That would be our sole source request that Mike has signed as legal counsel for the train service operator agreement, and then that allows us to move forward and negotiate with Tom. And Tom, I know you're here, so forgive me if you want to add anything, please come up. If there's anything you want to add or any context or anything like that, but I think that's a great idea to have something signed by Mike, that this is a sole source, a train services operating agreement, or I need to restate that, but you know what I mean? Like, it's eligible, right, as a sole source. So we have something that allows us to move forward to negotiate with Tom and team. So I like that idea, if you're amenable to that,
I think
Mike.
you were the one that sent the link to the state of Nevada
Yes.
Department of Administration Purchasing Division.
Yep.
And they have a 3-page form that is for the vendor to solicit waiver justification and request to be considered as a sole source. And we can adapt that form
Yeah.
if you want.
Go ahead, Stephanie. Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think that sounds great, because then, if there's a question that comes from anyone, it's very clearly there that we've reviewed it and we've identified it. It doesn't have to put Tom on the defense every time somebody asks the question. We know that this was the proper way of getting into a contract with him and the reasons for it and what it qualified under, and I think that would be perfect.
I love it. And that can be an attachment or, attachment, whatever, AA, BBCC, whatever, to the new train services operating agreement. So I think I like both those suggestions. Denny, Clay, you guys, any thoughts? Are you comfortable with that approach? Yep, I see him shaking his
Yeah,
head.
this Denny, very, very much so.
Okay.
Yep.
That's great. Jim, any?
Yeah, I actually was kind of hoping that we would have that document at least quasi filled out to today to kind of take a look at, because I think that the questions that waiver justification includes are the things like we just talked about, that having the railroad or the Federal Railway Association oversight
Mhm.
magnification, and this isn't the end all to contract negotiations. I mean, this is
Sure.
just
The start.
this is just the start, and we need to recognize that, a sole source contract is entered into because it's good for both parties. This contract has to be good for both parties, and this just allows us to not have to go through that formal bidding process, but it doesn't make the contract negotiations any easier.
Sure. Well, Jim, would you mind maybe, since we're discussing talking today, getting everybody's collective feedback for Mike, maybe at the January meeting, we could bring back that modified sole source document to approve it at the January meeting? Would you prefer that?
I'm okay with going forward with what we have
Okay.
today. I think the justification is there.
Yeah.
I just agree with Stephanie that putting it in writing just makes this, we don't have to do this every time the contract expires. We can just do it once. And then, when you go the next time, you just take a look at that and make sure that none of the circumstances have changed. And assuming none of the circumstances have changed, you can continue to use that sole source justification document going forward.
Yeah. Okay. No, so Mike, you're clear, and I can work with you too on that document, or we can bring Jim in.
Yeah, this came to me in a non-modifiable format. Did you get it that way, or?
I probably sent the link. That was the PDF version? There's a Word version out there, I think, Jim, but we can get that. One of us will find it and send it to you, so we can tinker
Okay.
with it and modify it. Yeah.
And then a question on implementation. Are we going to have Allison prepare this document once we've got our form squared away and get Tom to sign it? Or do you want me to do that?
So,
Go ahead, Jim.
So this document is not signed by the vendor. This is a document that will be prepared for and signed by us as the commission, saying that we agree that this is a solicitation which does not lend itself to being put out for bidding.
Lead bid, yeah.
Yeah, for competitive bidding. So this isn't signed by the vendor. This is us saying that we don't believe that this is a contract that is appropriate for competitive bidding.
Jim, do you want me to have this scanned and emailed to you?
Any other comments from the commission? Tom, come on up.
My name's Tom Gray, Virginia Truckee Railroad. Yeah, I think you're kind of missing the point, whether we own track or whatever we own. It's the passion that we put into this thing and our fortune for half a century, and we're keeping it going. And you can definitely have somebody else do this. I'm getting old. The valuation that was presented a long time ago was justified by one of your commission members. But that's a whole nother discussion and et cetera. My talks with the Sierra Railroad at the time was, I never said they could or could not go. My suggestion for them was, if you want to hop aboard, we can make a bigger piece of pie for Nevada. They had more, we assumed that they had more resources than us, but that was incorrect. And Mayor Carl came up one time and said they picked the right people because they could see what we do in the wintertime. And you need to come up and see what we do to make this run. And it's not about our track structure. It's about, we have 3 Christmas trains running now. And I brought Polar Express down here way before you guys to help pay for the summertime trains. And actually, I met with the Gold S West people then, and their marketing person came out, and we're trying to figure out how to do it all. What they're going to do it in Virginia City or in Carson City. And the original suggestion, we were going to do it in American Flat, share it with both communities. So that's the real thing. When I go, that's going to be gone. It has nothing to do with the track structure and all those other it won't happen. So
Tom, could I ask you a question, though? Is your understanding of what Ken and Mike were saying about you can't have two different operators on the same set of track?
Oh, yeah.
Is that you do agree with that at least, though?
most certainly.
Okay.
And it happened with the rail bike situation. That's why we brought that up. That was a critical,
Okay.
that was a big deal.
Okay.
Yeah, how to have equipment and on the top of other equipment and all that. It's a big deal for them. And nobody's got hurt so far in 50
Right,
years,
right.
so we're doing something right.
Yeah,
We're still-
and what we're trying to do here is obviously pave the way so we can start negotiations, to get, because obviously the agreement we have ends December of next year, and we want to pave the way for a new multi-year agreement with you and your team.
No, I understand. It's,
Yeah.
there's a lot involved here, but,
Sure. Okay. No, thank you, Tom. I appreciate those comments. Thank you. Yeah, go ahead, Stephanie.
I just wanted to comment on Tom's comment, and that is I personally appreciate your passion and what you do for the railroad and the railway, because I agree. I think you've brought a lot to this community that we certainly wouldn't have any other way. And I'm again, thankful that we've put this issue to bed so that we can move forward on those discussions in the future. So Tom, thank you.
Double that from me. So, yeah, no, appreciate it, Tom. Thank you. Thank you for letting us go through
Mr.
the
Chairman?
process. Yeah, go ahead, Clay. Yes.
Yeah, so the one thought that's in my mind as we talk about this, and it's kind of a long shot thing, and I think maybe we bring it up and we rule it out. And I want to be clear, I'm not suggesting it in any way. But in theory, the commission has a piece of property in Gold Hill. And in theory, the commission could run trains that far and put some sort of facility at that end and be done. And I don't think that's something that I have any appetite for, but I think it may be worth just discussing briefly as a commission and making sure that that's not something, because that would be the only situation where I would see that competitive bidding would have a place. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so Clay, to clarify, you're saying if we stop at the end of our track right before the Gold Hill Depot and we don't go into Virginia City like we do today, it would change the dynamics of obviously the ride, the excursion, the visitor experience. But you're saying
Correct.
if we went in that direction, then that, in your opinion, we would need to put that out to bid.
Well, I'm saying that would be a reason for competitive bidding because in theory we wouldn't have two operators using the same tracks and so on and so forth. But there are clear downsides to not running into Virginia City, and I don't really foresee it as a viable option. I just think it should be covered in the discussion, and
Sure.
if we agree that it's not a viable option, then that's on the record and off we go.
Gotcha. I'm in agreement with you because I think that materially changes the whole visitor experience, right? I mean, the point is we want to bring people up to Virginia City. So I'm in agreement with, I agree with you that yes, then that would be a competitive bid thing because now we're two separate sets of tracks, but I know I wouldn't be open to changing the visitor experience. But that's just me, just my opinion. Go ahead, Stephanie.
And yeah, just for discussion's sake, because something like that would certainly have to take a separate action, but I don't believe the city has the appetite for that either. I think we're very appreciative of the partnership with Story County. I think there's lots of things, there's a lot more we could even do. But again, that experience of going to Virginia City and likewise from Virginia City coming to Carson City, I think that's really a big draw of what what makes the railway so great. So there's not an appetite on my end to change that.
David?
Yes.
Yeah, this can, to amplify what Clay said, yes, the commission does own a small piece of property adjacent to the Gold Hill Depot right up against SR 342. But for the commission to get an independent track into that very, very small parcel, we would have to acquire easements from Story County, from the Virginia and Truckee Railroad, and from Comstock Mining. And that doesn't even address the track construction, which would be pretty tricky if we had to separate the commission's track from Tom's. There's going to be some retaining walls and road relocations, and there's an extensive amount of work. Potentially, you'd have to do some more environmental reviews, at least from the Comstock side. So, again, for the commission to consider running independently to Gold Hill, I don't think is practicable at this point, and probably not any time in the future.
Thank you, Ken, for adding that information. I appreciate that. And Clay, could you hear Ken? Just want to be sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. And again, I'm not suggesting it. I don't think it's something we really even want to do. It's just a remote possibility that that should be addressed, and I think that's what we're hearing.
Yeah. No, I know. Very fair, Ken, or Clay, sorry. Denny, did you want to add anything, or?
Well, from a tourism standpoint, I wouldn't be the one to want to tell our local merchants that train's not coming to town. So you guys would be on your own on that.
We just need your email and password, your username. Yeah.
The complaint department is closed. Sorry. No, I would not be in favor of that. It would be a transportation nightmare to get a benefit for Virginia City.
Right. Okay. Jim, any comment? No. Okay.
No, I'll add one thing. I think everybody agrees that the experience of going into Virginia City from Carson City is what makes that train great. Historically, if you look at the financials, though, it's Polar Express that really drives the profitability to allow the train to go into Virginia City almost every weekend. And it's going to be very interesting to see where we end up with Polar, because we've done basically the Polar numbers are final now. We did better than we thought we were going to do by about $60,000, I think. But part of that goes to back to them. We still got a lot of expenses on this thing that by the time Polar is done at the end of December, we're going to know whether Polar made enough profit for us to run the trains in the summer. I mean, I've said this before, the commission doesn't need to operate at a profit, but it cannot operate at a loss. And so we may have some very difficult decisions, just some rough math. There may be some difficult decisions if Polar Express cannot keep this thing in the black.
No, agreed. Agreed, Jim. Any other comments? I don't
Dave,
think. Oh yeah, go ahead. Go ahead, Denny.
Sorry, I just a discussion, and then Jim, this is a conversation for a different time, but this is a tourism product and it's good for the region. You don't necessarily need to break even or even make a profit on an attraction or in tourism if you're getting compensated on the back end like we do with a quarter-cent sales tax. So it's just it's a different way of thinking. It's tough sometimes from a political standpoint or from an accounting standpoint to look at it that way. I get it. I believe me, I deal with this all the time, but I think tourism should spend every last dollar. And if they're in the hole a little bit and they're still refunded, then we can all do that party again next year. So again, just a little bit different way to look at it.
Thank you, Denny. Any further comments or questions? I don't think we need to have a formal motion on 12, really. I think we've browbeat this one up pretty well. So we'll come up with a document, Mike, and we'll have that ready to roll. So unless somebody disagrees, sorry, I don't want to assume anything, but okay. All right. Well, if there are no further comments, thank you, Mike. Appreciate the input. Thank you, Tom, as well, and everybody on the commission. Thank you, Ken. We'll go ahead and move on to item 13 for discussion only, monthly non-action item, upcoming meeting. So the next VNT Commissioners meeting is tentatively scheduled for January 27th at 1 p.m. Go ahead.
I'm going to jump in on that
Yeah.
one. We are potentially looking at moving from Thursdays to Wednesdays. We're looking at the calendar with Carson City currently to see the availability for that. So once we have a finalized schedule, we'll be sending it out to each commissioner.
Yep. So this date is Wednesday, though, I think, right? For right now? Is it? Hopefully.
I'm not,
Or is it
I don't think we've heard back, so it wouldn't, it's a very tentative.
Oh, that's
Take
right.
that tentative definition.
That's right.
to
We
be-
kept
yeah.
it as Thursday just because we don't know if we can actually get the room.
Yeah,
or
we're not currently
So we
scheduled.
had to leave it the way that, it
Yeah,
normally
with the
is.
holidays and
Yep,
everything,
yep,
we
yep.
haven't heard back. So
Yeah.
once we have the confirmed schedule, and we will schedule out the entirety of 2022, so you'll have all of those meeting dates.
Yeah. Is that going to be an issue with anybody?
Yeah,
if
is
we-
Wednesday a problem?
Yeah, is Wednesday a problem instead of Thursday? And it would be fourth Wednesday, right, in lieu of the fourth Thursday?
That'd be okay with me. I was gonna say certain Wednesdays it would not work, but the fourth Wednesday should be fine.
Okay. Clay, is that okay for you?
Yeah, I think generally that's clear for me.
Okay, and Stephanie and Jim, is that work for your respective? No? Yeah, or yeah,
No.
maybe? Okay, cool. All right, great. So we'll update you once we hear back from the team that schedules the meetings here in the room and calendars, everything. So great, thank you. Agenda item number 14, commissioner comments or announcements and requests for information. Again, no action will be taken. No discussion among the members or with staff will take place during this agenda item. Does any commissioner wish to impart us with some wisdom?
I don't have a comment, but I have a request
Mhm.
from Allison to tell us how, there's no update this month. So how's Polar going? We've been running for a couple weeks. How's it going?
Thank you. Yeah, we, due to Polar and the holiday, I don't have an official operations report, but I'm happy to update you on Polar. Amazing feedback that we've been getting thus far. And in terms of revenue, we are sold out. We were sold out in October, and we have a waiting list of about 100 groups plus.
Wow.
So most of the coordination that we are doing on our end is answering the phone and saying, I'm sorry, but we'll add you to the cancellation list. In terms of additional revenue that we could see from here on out is within the retail. The last 2 weekends, we've averaged around 7,000 for the weekend. So if you do the math, that would land us at around a 42,000 revenue, give or take. So hopefully we maintain those numbers or go higher. The parking, which is also a new element that we've added this year, we do believe is doing well. I don't have exact numbers to report today. However, most of the shuttles are coming in mostly empty, which means they're paying to park. The goal there was really to, cover our cost and then some to make up for that loss of car. We are anticipating about 10,000 riders coming through in total. We have 4 more weekends, and it's beautiful. If you've not been out to the depot or ridden, let me know. I will try to get you on a train. We do have, things that come up and so forth. If there's any specific questions, I'm happy to touch on those.
No, I mean, I know where we are monetarily because I did the numbers last night. So I know where we're at monetarily. And I just was asking what the experience was like and what the feedback has been because I have not been out there other than for the one meeting.
Well, and quickly with parking, if you're looking at the numbers, we do have a square that we're doing on-site parking, so not all of it will be reflective in Fair Harbor for our parking revenue. We do have, I believe it's immediately after they ride the train, they receive an email with a Survey Monkey in there with questions that are specific to Polar Express, so that we'll be able to, look at their comments and so forth. I don't know the total number, but of everyone that has ridden, I've gotten 2 complaints in the last 2 weeks, which is remarkable, to be quite honest. I sit out there every train and say, thanks for coming, see you next year, smiles all across the board. So I'd say, if we can have what we had the last 2 weekends for our next 4, slam dunk.
Yeah, and I'll just make a comment too. Ed Rozicki was here for the week preceding with rail events, if you remember Ed. He came out to assist and help. He was blown away by the teamwork with Allison and Leah as compared to other events and operators in the U.S. where there's like one person literally doing everything. He was very impressed with the teamwork, handoff, give and take between the two on the team, and night and day different experience, like what these guys created up there with the back of the train when you're standing in the line and the lights, and it's just like having done the Polar Express before, it's like totally different, right? I mean, I think it's awesome. So kudos to you, ladies, and the helpers, and Gabe and Tom. I mean, this was a full, effort by all. Tom, amazing job with the cars and the diesel and just the decorations, right? I mean, just great. And Carla as well with all the actors. For all of us trying to figure all of this out who were new, I think it really came off very nicely, and I was nothing but impressed. And for the rail events guy to be impressed with our setup and configuration and the changes that we made, great job. That would be my comment. So any other comments from the commission? Yeah, go ahead. Stephanie, go
I
ahead.
just wanted to add to that. I did go out for the media night, the first night, the dress rehearsal, and while there were a few hiccups, it still was a wonderful event. And I think the decorations were just outstanding. The environment was outstanding. And everybody was just, like you said, everybody was just happy. It was a good event. And even with the things that went wrong on the train, the staff, the actors and actresses, they were fantastic. So I could imagine your reviews will continue to be wonderful.
Thanks, Stephanie. Yeah. Any other board comments or? Okay. Thank you. We'll go ahead and move on to agenda item 15, public comment. Again, public is invited to comment on any matter that is not specifically included on the agenda as an action item. No action may be taken on a matter raised under this item of the agenda. I don't see any public comment in the room. Allison, Leah, do we have anybody on the 775-686-9037 number?
There are no callers.
All right. Wonderful. With that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. If you want to.
So moved.
Thank you.
So
You're
moved.
adjourned. Thank you. Happy holidays, everybody.
You guys.
Take care.
Thank you all.
Thank you.